Hello and welcome to Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you on your journey to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. And this is your host, Beck Milonas, High Priestess, Channel, and Activator. Join me on this series as I share reflections, insights, and channel transmissions from my journey of walking the initiation path. Each episode is a unique transmission containing supportive frequencies to facilitate the deepest healing, activation, and reconnection with your soul. I invite you to open your mind and set the intention to receive this episode into your heart space. Let's go. Welcome back, beautiful souls, to another episode of Cracked Open, a podcast guiding you to becoming a vessel of unconditional love. Today, here with me, I have a new soul sister, Heather Hobson. I'm really excited to bring her on here. We actually don't know each other very well. We just connected briefly in the DMs and it was like, cool, let's do this. So I'm bringing Heather on. Heather is a professional astrologer, akashic records and starseed origins expert, and quantum alchemist, here to support awakening souls on their journey to reclaim their innate power and sovereignty. We had a funny thing happen the other day, which was like, hey, I got to get her on the podcast and just like, let's follow the mystery crumbs.
Yes.
Heather posted a post about like, what book are you reading? And I accidentally got tagged in it. And obviously, guys, I wrote a book for everyone listening to this. So it was just a funny like spirit's like, hey, you guys need to talk. And she has my book there. So Heather, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've really been loving reading your book. It's funny too because the Diamond Light Oracle. So it was right around the time of the alignment with Rho Canceri, which is this diamond planet. It's this planet in the Cancer system that's the core of it is made entirely of diamonds. And then I saw this post that same day about your book, and I was like, I have to get this book.
Chills.
The Diamond Light Oracle, and it's the diamond planet alignment with the sun today. I was like, yes. And it's been really lovely reading it.
Amazing. I feel like you're going to be giving us some hot tips around what the fuck this astrology is at the moment, because Pluto's been doing some bits for me for a while, and I feel personally attacked by Pluto, but that's okay. So Heather, tell me about, let's go a little bit into your background, because I don't know you too well, like I know you from social media, but also for my audience, you just told me that you have just retired a 20-year career in mental health. So talk to me about what you were doing, what you're doing now, and how you're bridging all the starseed, the astrological stuff. I know your Instagram's full of amazing starseed content. So yeah, take the floor. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a, I wouldn't say middle. I'm like maybe 2/3 of the way through this big transformation that's been happening all summer. Retiring fully and completely, leaving the field of mental health, unplugging from the mental health matrix, if it were. And yeah, I had a very good career, I think, a long run. I worked in community mental health in San Francisco for 12 years. I mean, like in the trenches of community mental health. For those of you that are not familiar, San Francisco has probably one of the largest homeless populations, unhoused persons. And there's just a lot of real intense, I think, mental health crises that go on there. And then I got super burnt out on working in community mental health, transitioned to private practice that I was doing for 8 years. So I've kind of worked in all different settings, but it's interesting because I always tell people I didn't choose to be a therapist. I didn't choose to be a psychologist. It wasn't really something I ever really wanted to do. It just came very naturally to me. Like I have an innate healing energy, I guess. And so it's so interesting because most of the clients that would find me were in like having a spiritual awakening, having an existential crisis, were like, am I going crazy? Are aliens real? All of these kinds of things that I'm like, yes, yes. So yeah, it just seemed like the natural course to put that aside, retire, and just commit to my true soul mission, which is my spiritual business, helping others, helping awakening souls.
I love that. And I feel like let's dive straight in. Let's go. We're getting all the green lights. I was just saying to Heather before, oh, I feel like we need to talk about mental health and like the spiritual awakening path. And she goes, Beck, it's funny. The chapter I just read is the psychic or psychotic one in my book, which is literally about, am I fucking nuts? Right. I'm going to be fully transparent with my audience as I'm going through these huge initiations of like dragon energy for this upcoming container. I'm having moments of like mental stuff, like fuckery going on where I'm like, oh my God,
this is crazy. Yesterday I went through this journey and I was like pretty much in a hell realm. And I could see,
Mhm.
I don't know if anyone's seen Inside Out 2, but there's this character
I
called
haven't yet.
Anxiety. It's great. Anyway, there's a character called Anxiety, and Anxiety is like in this freeze loop of like all the fears. And she's like
Okay.
shaking and she's like, blah, 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 I've got to work it out, I've got to work it. Like, what? It was just this anxiety loop that she's in. Anyway, I went down to this hell realm and I found a version of myself in this. It was like a mental break. It was like this full on panic freeze mode. And it got me thinking about, like a few things have come up this week to bring this topic up again, that really fine line between like a psychotic break and a spiritual emergency, and how some of these
Mhm.
spiritual emergencies can really like they can really manifest as some severe like psychotic stuff. And I think
Right.
for me personally, like my family has a his I'm honest about, my grandma was diagnosed schizophrenic. She was the one with the gifts, so no surprises there. My mom's had a
Mhm.
history of mental health stuff. My dad's had a history of mental health stuff. My uncle is big in our family. And there are times where I'm like, am I just like fucking crazy? But like also this stuff is like true. So I'm just wondering for you, like, what's your perspective on that? And what do you say to like clients that come to you and they're like going through all this stuff and you're aware that there's like this higher spiritual purpose, but it's almost like
Mhm.
where's that line between, for you, where's the line between the psychosis and the psychological, like it could be an imbalance versus it's a spiritual thing? Or I'm just riff on
I
any of
think
that.
that all mental and emotional distress has a spiritual component to it. And that is one of the huge things that most mental health practitioners miss. They don't address that part. It's not that like is it one or the other. It's like how do we integrate your health and wellness so it's like a whole person approach, because you're going to like yes, we're going to have mental or emotional distress sometimes. Um but what's driving that? Is it an existential crisis? Is it a spiritual awakening? As many of us know, when you go through various different activations or initiations along your healing and awakening journey, there are, I mean, like abysmal dark moments where you're in the void,
Mhm.
where you don't even know if you're real, where maybe you are seeing or hearing things, you're having an activation of extrasensory or psychic gifts. And we're so conditioned in this realm through our egos to think like that's not real, that's scary, that's bad, I must
Mhm.
be crazy, whatever
Yeah.
that means. um and yeah, I think it does a real disservice to people, right? Because it's
Mhm.
very easy to slap a label on someone, or give them a bunch of meds that actually dull that experience. The distress is actually part of the process, but we're so quick to label it as an illness.
Absolutely. And I want to
Yeah.
share like vulnerably, like for me, I was 14 or 15 the first time I was told I was bipolar by a psychologist, and they wanted to put me on medication. And I was like so against it when I was younger. I was like, I'm not fucking taking the meds. I refuse to take the meds. I'm not doing it. So I refused, I refused up to about the age of like, I think it was 24 or 25. I was pretty much suicidal. Like I was like, if I don't do something, I'm gonna kill myself. Like I can't bear this anymore. So I went on SSRIs briefly. I think it was about a year and a
Hmm.
half.
Hmm.
And they just dulled things. Like they didn't make things better. They
They
just kind of
numb.
like
Yeah.
numbed me out. And that's about like the time my spiritual awakening really started ramping up. And I started talking to my guides, and they were like, Beck, you need to feel everything so you can heal it.
Right.
Like you can't avoid it. Like avoiding it is not gonna help, right? And so
No.
I went off the meds, and that's when my Kundalini awakening really like fucking happened. And then
Yeah.
honestly, like guys, I cry every day. I cry every day. And that's such a like, people see you crying or they see you releasing emotion or they see you in a state and they're like, how do I fix it? Like I need to fix it. What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Like you shouldn't be
Right.
like
We'll
this.
go
And they just
quick to that.
project a bunch of shit onto you. And it's like, actually, maybe it serves for us to release, and it's normal for us to release,
Yes.
especially those of us who are cycle breakers. We're ancestral break. Like we come here to feel the things that the people in our family were not willing to feel. And so then are you going to tell
Exactly.
all those emotions to just stop? Like, hey, I'm going to put a lid on it now. You need to stop. You cried for 2 years. That's enough. Like, so it's,
Hmm.
I just want to talk about like the process, because people think, oh, I've allowed myself to feel my emotions on the spiritual awakening path, and then suddenly they're going to stop, or I'm going to be normal, or it's going to dry up. And it's like, actually, you don't get to say, what
Yeah.
that process looks like. Yeah. And from my experience anyway, having a willingness to like go balls deep into it and not avoid it
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is always like, I always find on the other side the catharsis and things turn around. Like yesterday was hard. Like there were moments yesterday where I was like, it was like hellish, real like psychosis energy of like being stuck in this loop and oh my God, I can't get out. I can't get out. And it was terrifying. I was trembling, my whole body. I was trembling, feeling what this part of me was. But it's like I almost had to go there into my worst fear, like my worst
Mm-hmm.
fear, my worst
Yes.
pain, and be willing to feel it for it to move. And I think that's part of the reason why we have meds and why we have doctors slapping labels on things. And I want to be careful around this because I know that there are clinical conditions where there is like an imbalance of
Okay.
chemicals, right? But I also feel like maybe that has a spiritual like way to heal that as well. But
Well, I think okay, a couple things here is like
mhm,
that is the process. That is the true depth of shadow work, right? As a healer, as an alchemist, whether you're doing that work for yourself, for the collective, for your clients, for your students, whoever you're working with, you almost have to like become the feeling to you have to embody it to transmute it. You have to feel the full scope of it. And that is, we've been taught that that's scary or that that's bad or that, oh my gosh, if I allow myself to just sob uncontrollably, I'm never going to stop. It can feel like that sometimes,
mhm,
but we have to go through that. And there's this process of like gold mining the shadows, right? Once you go down there into like the very bottom of the darkness, there's nowhere to go but up.
yeah,
There's nowhere to go but
absolutely.
up once you allow yourself to go down there,
Mm,
right? To rock
yeah,
bottom.
because it's not controlling you anymore. And that's honestly, that's why I was taken to this place. I had this this situation show up where my one of my biggest fears is it's like a karmic soul wound. Firstly is abandonment,
Mhm.
like God has abandoned me. And the second is that like I will have more love than I've ever had in my life and I'll be betrayed. Like that person will betray me, backstab me, whatever.
Mhm.
Anyway, so some things happened to show me where this fear was still operating.
Yeah.
And I had to like I was like, why is this still like I've done so much healing around? Why the fuck is this still here? And I had to go like fully into and be willing to sit with that part of me that was like still in that fear. And she was like paralyzed by that fear and see that that fear was actually governing everything. Like it was governing my actions
Mm.
subconsciously because I wasn't willing to actually like sit with it and look at it and be like, hey, I'm addressing you directly by being, I literally had to go down and be with this part of myself and be like, I'm not fucking going anywhere. Like you take as long as you need to take. I'm not giving up on you. I'm not going anywhere. I love
Yes.
you, And I think we're not patient with ourselves when we're healing these things that God, it could have been lifetimes in the making, some of these traumas that we're holding on to. It could be stuff
Right.
that, like
Right.
ancestral generations and generations of women. And that's what I was saying. Like this was a pattern. It's like ancestrally went really back far into my line. It wasn't just my stuff. I saw my grandma
Mhm.
in prison. Like, I saw all these things and like feeling caged up. And it made me realize like we don't get to say enough is enough, get over it. Like sometimes these things have to run their course, and that's like you said, through the full embodiment, being, becoming it, because then
Yes.
we alchemize it from within. And that's literally, to bring it back around to what I saw yesterday. Like I became her, but then because I was within and inside of her, it's like all my light and all my fire as a dragon came out and I became a dragon. I was like, fuck, like I'm free, right? But
Yes.
I had to actually go into it. And I think in our society, we're so quick to dismiss or we want it done quicker. And so we're like, give me the quick fix, give me the magic pill. And that's what I'm afraid, some of the psychological stuff it's like that. It's like I just want a solution. I want an answer. I want you to tell me now. And it's more complex than that.
Right. Make me better now. What is the
Yeah.
magic bullet? What is the magic pill? I even have a chapter in my book where, I start off with like sometimes little stories or quotes, protecting clients' confidentiality. But I have had clients say, oh, this is like so hard. Can you just like wave a magic wand or something?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
in all seriousness. And I was
Hmm.
like, even if you could do that, right? And
Yeah.
magically just take away all of someone's pain, you're doing a huge disservice to them
Yeah.
because through that pain is where the medicine is,
Hmm.
right? That's, part of the journey. You're not going to appreciate all of the beautiful, wonderful, magical things in life if you haven't had that other end of the spectrum. And
Absolutely.
that's what Earth is such a dualistic, polarized place. We came to
Hmm.
experience it all. So let yourself experience it.
Yeah. I'm curious, like I also studied psychology briefly. I studied it for about a year and a half. in a postgrad, and I was like so determined to do it. And then I was like, this is going to take years and years to become a clinical psychologist. And also, I'm not vibing like putting people into boxes, but I see the value in it. And I'm just curious, um, how quickly would someone come to you, and like what's a process when someone would come to you and you would determine, oh, this has a spiritual, like what sorts of common, just for someone like listening who's like, is this like a psychological? I know we've said that it's like both, but what sorts of things do people present with? Like what emotions, what similar themes? Are there like overarching
Yeah.
themes where you recognize someone's being called forward into some sort of spiritual awakening?
Most of the time people come in for like the initial complaint that they come in with is I'm having anxiety, I can't sleep, I feel depressed, or I can't feel anything, or I'm having some type of relational problem. Like my partner and I aren't getting along, my mom and all my family, right? My coworker, it's something like that. Usually that's what it comes to. I'm having some distress, right? It's anxiety, it's depression. Once in a while, anger, they'll come in with some anger management stuff, relationship problems. And then usually when we start to get to know each other and you start to kind of understand a little bit about their history and how they're moving through the world, usually underneath that distress is some type of trauma, and people really don't like that word, trauma. Like, oh, well, I wasn't hit, it wasn't that bad. It's like, well, if
Mm-hmm.
you had a trauma response, if you had a dysregulated nervous system, that's a trauma. And I think a lot of times people don't want to go there to look at that, right? They don't want to go to that deeper level. There's some resistance to that. Um, and sometimes people come in very openly, I think, because I was pretty open, like with, the type of work that I did, that I'm more of like a integrated holistic health practitioner, would integrate Eastern and Western philosophy. There is definitely, like, I specialized in working with empaths, starseeds, light workers, like I said that. So, certain people were drawn to that, wanting to do more like somatic work or energy work and understanding, like, well, what are the chakras? If I'm feeling really anxious, is there too much like energy above the neck, right? In the crown or the third eye or something? So people would be open to it, but everyone's level of awareness of those things, everyone's level of openness to those things is pretty different. But I would say 9 times out of 10, there's usually a bigger spiritual or existential component going on,
Mm-hmm.
like almost always, right?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there's any key again, like it's so hard because it's such a complex thing, and like it's a yes and it's like a maybe and maybe I am a little bit bipolar. Of course I am. Fucking like if you just have to look at me for 5 minutes and understand I'm a bit bipolar, but
Well,
also what is bipolar and who said that that's bipolar and who said that that's a thing, right?
but what's the difference between mania or hypomania and Kundalini awakening?
Absolutely is
Are you
my
ready to
point. Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
What's the
yeah.
difference between depression and a dark night of the soul? They're very
Exactly.
similar. What's the difference between schizophrenia and a
Hmm.
perseveration from reality, whatever that is, because you're, seeing through time, or you're seeing through other dimensions?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They're
So at
very
what
similar.
Yes, yeah, it's fucking tricky, huh? At what point do you think, and this is like, I don't know the answer to this, this is genuinely something that I'm considering and wondering about. Do you think medical intervention, like some sort of like medication, is necessary or helpful? Like, at what point do you believe
Yeah.
would you refer someone? Like, if they were like suicidal, or like at what point would you refer someone to get further
Yeah.
help?
When I was working in the field of mental health, I think in certain situations, I have seen medication be life saving. So it's not to say like never use medication. Medication's like the enemy here. No, in
Hmm.
certain situations, particularly when the person cannot function at all across most areas of their life, taking medication, an SSRI, a mood stabilizer, whatever it is, for a short period of time, 6 to 12 months, combined with doing a lot of inner work and lifestyle changes, can be life saving.
Hmm.
It's not something you need to stay on. And most people have really unpleasant side effects, right?
Yeah.
You can't orgasm as easily. That's a big one for a lot of people. You might
Hmm.
gain weight, or you might, like most SSRIs, especially, they blunt your affect. So you don't have high highs,
Yeah.
you don't have low lows.
Yeah.
It's just kind of here. And a lot of
Yeah.
people don't like how that feels.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
so I'm in extremes. Like I'm gonna be transparent about that. It's very rare that I'm just cruising. I'm either like
yeah,
manic,
that's fine.
ecstatic, like full on
Yeah.
fucking orgasmic, walking around like having an orgasm, or I'm like in bed, like so it's like very big extremes. And I think a lot of people are operating within this like normal people, right? I want to say normal with inverted commas because there's no such fucking thing, but they're operating within this spectrum of emotion. And if you can't see the video, it's like a very small spectrum of emotion. And
Yeah.
as you heal, like the lows become lower, but the highs become higher. And so that fluctuation between like the very high high and the very low low becomes more obvious and evident. And it's like it's not like I'm not saying like those states, I can shift between them very quickly and come back
Yeah.
and it's sort of like there's an equilibrium that happens because it's very high, but then very low, but then I'm kind of find the balance in the middle. So it's
Yeah.
about trying to
Yeah.
find that balance in the middle. But what one thing I would say is like, I would never fucking trade. Like everyone sees me, like my family sees me going through this stuff and they're like, you need to stop. Like, this is not, how do you live? Like, you can't function. Some days you can't function like this. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't see or acknowledge how fucking incredible it feels on the other side. And I would
Right.
trade like a whole life to be like this, have these highs and lows for the times when it is ecstatic and it is joyful and it is like
Absolutely.
fucking I'm like one with God and everything is incredible. And I think it's a payoff. It's a payoff. Like, not to say that we have to experience like the heaviness to feel good and we have to suffer to feel good, but I think it's inevitable that when you experience something that's so high and so incredible and so beautiful and so ecstatic,
Right.
even like a slight sadness is going to seem like hugely dark in comparison. I think that's partially why this dark night of the soul happens in a way, because we get this
Hmm.
glimpse of this transcendental experience or this connection with God.
Right.
And then it's like, because we've felt that love, we've felt
Right.
that connection, it's almost fucking unbearable to be human again. Like, so for me,
It
actually,
is.
it became more painful when I realized, oh my God, that's what I'm from. Like, that's what I am. Like, I've been embraced into this experience of God's unconditional love or my soul or whatever it is. And then I have to come back here and like be without that. Like, that's fucking agony to me. Like, that's like literally like,
Hmm.
God, why have you abandoned me? That it's
Hmm.
about how can we connect to that more frequently so it becomes a consistent and like embodied state of being. So what sorts of things do you do to support people to bring themselves up, like if they're in a dark night of the soul or if they're really like going through some sort of a spiritual emergency? I want to give people some practical from like a psychologist, like we know heaps of healing techniques, but from a psychological perspective to support the mind, because it's not like the body knows how to release, the soul knows how to release, the
Right.
intuition knows how to release, but the mind is the one that really fucking struggles with this stuff. So
I think
you know.
having a daily embodiment practice is the most important thing to get your body moving. Most people, most of us live our life above the neck. We're in our heads,
Hmm.
we're thinking, thinking, thinking. Like we have to drop it into the body.
Thank
If
you.
that's literally just sitting in a ball in the shower, just feeling the water on you, that's better than laying in bed ruminating over why you're depressed or how
Hmm.
many other times in your life you've been depressed, and just
Hmm.
remembering like you're not your depression, you're not
Yeah.
the anxiety, you're not the trauma, you're not the mania, you're
Hmm.
more than that, you're a soul.
Hmm. I
And I
love
think
that.
that's helpful, to get people out of it a little bit. Our our brains will play tricks on us sometimes when we're really low, when we're in that dark night of the
Hmm.
soul, when we're in a depressed episode or you're having a panic attack, right?
Yeah.
And so I think just remembering it's temporary
Hmm.
and just finding one little thing that you can do that grounds you back into your body, that helps you feel a little more connected to the fullness of your body and in the present moment.
Hmm. And our brains can also become susceptible to like hearing, or like if we're tapped in, if we're in a low vibrational state, we can take on like, entities or things like whispering in our ear,
Hmm.
these things, right? So it's like
Right,
really
right.
important for me. A really big practice is like when I'm having, like yesterday, I was having these looping thoughts and I literally had to like sit there and just listen to them. And it's almost like reassure my little self or my brain or that part of me that's afraid for no fucking reason or it's like having
Hmm.
anxiety. I've got you. I'm here. Like, we're going to get through this. It's okay. Like, whatever you need to
Yes.
tell yourself in that moment, like, tell those thoughts and don't tell them to shut up. Like, it's so not
Yes.
helpful to push them down and be like, shut up, stop talking. Like, you're stressing me out, whatever it is. It's like, actually, sometimes they just need to be heard. and not paid
Yes.
attention to, like don't give them power, but like they just want to be heard. And so you need to just listen.
Yes.
Like this part of me was just like, I just need you to know how scared I am. And I'm just trying to keep you safe. Usually those thoughts are just trying to
Right.
keep you safe. They just don't want you um to die, to be hurt, to whatever it is, right? So I think just
Right.
presence, and also, yeah, like you said, dropping into the body for me,
Hmm.
massive, massive, particularly as I'm working with this dragon energy. Like the message was like, you're going to get fried if you're not moving your body. You're going to start to get
Right.
angry, you're going to start to get like erratic, and I've noticed it happens like when I'm not directing it and I'm not moving it through my body, I like get really agitated and like aggro.
Hmm.
And so it's so important when we're working with spiritual energies of any kind, right? Of any kind, could kundalini, like dragon energy, higher energy, like cosmic energies, whatever it is, to be
Right.
moving our body so they're circulating and they're not getting stuck, because that
Super
stuckness
important.
creates blockages. Okay, let's talk about your book. You wrote a book. I want to talk about the
I did.
process of writing a book and what your book is about.
Oh
And I know it's like,
boy.
I think you said 20 portals to healing or
I have it right here.
something.
Mhm. The
There we
healing
go.
vortex within.
44
44
portals, sorry.
portals to
Wow, it's a
awaken
lot
your
more than 20.
self-healing superpowers. And the picture of me on the front, I don't know if you can see it that great, is of me
Mm.
at one of the sacred vortexes at Mount Shasta.
Oh, fuck yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I went there. I published my book in 2022, and I went there for my birthday in 2021. Shout out to Paul the Venetian of Mount Shasta Spiritual Tours. I went on this like 6-hour hike through the terrain, through the forest, on the mountain of Mount Shasta, like off the path. And we hiked all the way up to this beautiful it was all this volcanic rock, like rock formation,
Mm.
and there was just this amazing like rainbow plasma energy around, and he had an infrared camera, and that's how he took that picture.
Wow.
um so that really helped me finish the book, actually, because I started writing the book in 2019. 2019 was like one of those nightmare years for me. Like, I left an abusive relationship. The love of my life died. My cat, Disco Tomcat, may he rest in peace. And one of my good friends died of breast cancer. So it was just like a rough, rough year, lots of losses, and the book kept kind of changing, it kept kind of morphing. And then, okay, 2020, the pandemic hit.
Mm.
And I moved. I left San Francisco, and all kinds of other things happened that year. So the book itself took probably at least 2 years to write, I want to say. Yeah, because it kept changing. I kept transforming. I wasn't like, how can I write the book about what I wanted to write it about initially? It just wasn't going to happen. But it is like giving birth. I feel like it's painful. It's hard.
You're literally about to get to a chapter me talking about that exactly, because the whole chapter
Okay.
about talking about birth. Yeah, it is. And oh, it really breaks you apart.
Hmm.
It's so cool that you waited for that evolution to happen, because like in our DMs we were talking about, I said, oh yeah, with my book, like I've changed so much even since I only published that 2 months ago, and I just feel like I'm quantum levels away from
Right.
that, and I'm like,
Right.
fuck, like that's, what if I had be still writing it? I'd be writing it forever, because we're always changing, right? So at what point were
Right.
you like, this is done and I'm ready for this to be out in the world? Like, what
Yeah,
do you
I was
think?
just like, I need to get this done. It needs to be done. It needs to be out. Like, after I got back from, this was like May of 2021, after my journey to the sacred vortex sites, Mount Shasta, the book really poured out of me. And okay, this guy Paul the Venetian that runs Mount Shasta Spiritual Tours is lovely. He's from Venus. Sounds a little wacky maybe to some people, but he's
Absolutely
legit.
not.
He's the
Yeah.
real deal. And he knew nothing about me. He knew not a single thing about me. He didn't even know it was my birthday that day. And we kind of meditated together. There was one other person there with us, and he's like, "You are Heather, Pleiadian emissary of light. You are from the Pleiades." And I was like, "Oh, you're legit. I am. Like, that's one of my star homes, right? I'm from many places." But I was like, oh, he knew nothing about me, just was kind of channeling into that. And after that, the book really poured out of me. I was able to finish it up by like the fall, edit it, got it published by the spring the next year.
Amazing.
So
So you think you're
yeah.
taking people on some sort of like multi-dimensional journey through like literal portals of transformation in this book?
each chapter is a portal. Each chapter really is a portal for you to journey through, you know, in your own way. They're like little mini chapters. It's part self-help book, part kind of like memoir. There's a lot of really, it's also a comedic book, I will say. It's like there's a lot of really funny stories of my misadventures of living and working in San Francisco for 12 years. So there's some wacky stories in there. But it's really about making healing and awakening fun again. That's kind of like the
Mhm.
motto of the book, because I feel like so often, and you know, healing and awakening isn't always fun. It's messy, it's painful,
Mhm.
it's really hard sometimes, but it doesn't have to be that way all the time.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love amazing. Cool. Let's change trajectories a little bit. I feel like you've got
Yeah.
some insights into astrology for us. So astrology, what kind of
Yes.
astrology do you do? And also, is there just anything that you're feeling to share around the current astrologies or what we can be expecting or what the hell has been? Oh,
Eclipse
fuck.
season is
Yeah.
coming.
Yay.
Buckle up. Yeah. Buckle up.
Yay.
So it's
Woo.
interesting because astrology, I've always loved astrology. I've always been obsessed with the stars. I've been studying astrology for like 15 years, but like practicing astrology professionally for about 7. And it's so interesting because astrology is quite literally the study of the stars. But in
Mhm.
modern astrology, we mostly focus on the planets, the wandering stars, the ancients called them. So what I really love, the main thing I specialize in is fixed star astrology, which is emphasis on the alignment with the stars in conjunction to planets, and other aspects in your birth chart, the stars outside of the traditional zodiac system, which interestingly also correspond to galactic homes, past lives in the
Wow.
stars. So there's a lot that you can learn from your birth chart about your galactic origins, about your starseed origins, and past Earth life.
That's
So
amazing. Like
yeah, that's kind of what I.
what sorts of things like are indicators for someone and how would they like so if for instance if I was to put my shit into like myastro.com, would you be looking at asteroids or is it like there's things that you can plug in to have certain things come up?
Yeah, you can, if you went to astro.com and you go to other additional objects, you can scroll through their list of fixed stars.
Yeah.
You could plug in Sirius. You can plug
Wow.
that
Okay,
star and
cool.
see where it goes in your chart. You could plug in the
Mm.
Pleiades. You could plug in all kinds of other stars systems, Andromeda Galaxy. Yeah.
So what would be an indication that someone has had like say a connection or a light like a strong indicator because nothing's like set in stone but like would it be a conjunct like that planet conjunct their what first house or like a certain planet sorry
Yeah.
that star conjunctus like their sun or like would it be more like it'd be what's the other like uh, not north node south node because it's like the past like what would
South,
be the
yeah, South Node's a big one, a big indicator. Generally, like you would look at your big 3
hmm
first. So your sun, your moon, and your rising planetary conjunctions in your natal star chart, 2 fixed stars.
yeah
Um, so like for example, my moon is conjunct Tucana. It's one of the avian star families. So like I have had a past life as an avian. That's a very
cool
clear indicator. My sun is conjunct the Andromeda constellation. Okay, another indicator, right?
hmm
So you would want to look at the big 3, but you're going to have at least a dozen, if not 20 different galactic origins that'll show up in your natal star chart. There's so much you can actually tell because we've, you know, if you're an activated and aligned star seed, if that term resonates with you, it's going to show up in your star chart.
hmm
The asteroids can add another layer to that too.
I love
Or
asteroids. I work with
me
a
too.
few asteroids quite a bit, yeah, because they're more like goddess energies. Like that's why I really resonate
Yes.
with them. Like you got Kali and Lilith, and I'm like, okay,
Yes.
where are you fucking up my life today? No, I'm kidding. I love Kali,
That's why I
but
love the
like,
asteroids too, because most of the planets are masculine in nature. So the
yeah.
asteroids kind of balance that out with the divine feminine energy.
So talk to me about this upcoming eclipse, and if there are any like alignments or conjunctions with any specific stars or anything that you see or know is coming.
Yeah. So we have the new moon in Virgo that's happening on, I think it's the second Monday. Um,
hmm
and that's conjunct Ursa Major. So eclipse season technically is about a 6 to 8 week period. It usually starts 2 to 4 weeks before the first eclipse and then ends 2 to 4 weeks after the last eclipse. The first eclipse, official eclipse in this eclipse season is September 17th. So it's a full moon, partial lunar eclipse in Pisces conjunct Pegasus.
Wow, I don't know what's going on, but my vagina is doing a bunch of things when you're talking about it, which usually means there's something. I'm Pisces, so I don't know. Okay,
Oh,
sorry,
you're
continue.
Pisces sun. You
I
might
am
have some
Pisces sun.
Pegasus starseed origins there.
I've had, I remember when I used to do my mystery school rebirth, and this was before I could really see or understand what I was like properly doing. Every woman in that mystery school said, "Oh, I saw Pegasus coming in." And I was like, "I'm Greek and I love Hercules and there's Pegasus and
Yes.
Hercules, so cool." Like that, I vibe that, but I didn't really understand. So for people who don't know Pegasus, what does Pegasus represent?
Pegasus is the winged horse. Pegasus is kind of like, in the Greek pantheon, thought of as like a hero of sorts, right? Very much connected to Poseidon, to Uranus,
Hmm.
and Medusa.
Yep. Okay. I
Medusa,
didn't,
the Pegasus is the offspring of Medusa and Poseidon.
wow, I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. So Pegasus is conjunct Pisces.
Yes, and a lot of the stars in Pegasus are prophetic stars.
Oh, that
So
makes
there's a
sense.
lot that makes sense if you have that in your chart, right? There's a lot of the ancient astrology around fixed stars that goes way back before, like, our traditional understanding of like the zodiac. They really used the fixed stars for navigation, to plan when to plant their crops, to know when to
Hmm.
do certain rituals and other things like that. And so, yeah, Pegasus is one of the constellations outside of the traditional zodiac. There's a lot of prophetic stars in there, and Pegasus can fly super high into the sky. So, Pegasus can also see things from this zoomed out, greater vantage point. So I
Yeah.
think that's like one of its, main powers in a way. It can zoom
And
out
so
and see the big
I'm
picture.
guessing like with Pisces, which is like literally the oracle of the fucking zodiac, those conjunct, it's going to be a very prophetic time, which is moving us forward. This is what I'm sensing into the energy
Yes.
of this eclipse. Like it's going to be seeing real big picture stuff. Oh, okay, cool. And like pushing us onto trajectories moving forward because we're able to see what's been limiting us. That's what I'm feeling in the energy.
Yes.
Is that what you're picking up?
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. And then
Exactly.
we've got Pluto still. Actually, I feel like Pluto is going to go. I know that Pluto is going to go conjunct back into, not conjunct, sorry, retrograde in. I think
Right.
it's October because I know that he's been bang on, like he's been right on top of like my ascendant and my moon, and he's like giving me a bit of a reprieve for a while, and then he's
Okay.
back on to riding my ass for a while. But I feel like that's happening around October, so this might be just after that
Yeah, I
eclipse
think
season.
it's the first, I want to say. Pluto has been at 0 degrees Aquarius for some
Yep.
time,
Good
retrograde
times.
since May. But on the 1st of September, he moves back to the 29th anaretic degree of Capricorn, which is the
Hmm.
crisis degree. So if you have any planets in your chart at 29 degrees, it's activating some type of Pluto activation. And
Hmm.
Pluto, yes, he's Hades. Yes, he's Lord of the Underworld, but it's about like deep, long lasting transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's power in that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then I believe he goes direct in October.
I mean,
Uh,
I say all this like Pluto's been fun. I love it, guys. I'm here for it.
yeah, yeah, I
Like
get it.
I'm
I
here
get
for
it.
it.
Yeah.
It's kind of kinky. It's like submission domination energy with him. I'm like I'm liking it. It's all right. It's all good. But it's intense. It's intense
It is.
energy
It's
to work. And
intense.
I actually feel like generally lately it's been very intense. So I'm wondering if you have any insights into why it's been very intense, particularly since like all of August has been intense. But it's felt like this real like pressure cooker, get your shit together, like we're gonna unearth all the stuff and make you look at it. I'm wondering if there's anything that you've seen or reasons why that might be.
Another big reason for that is Uranus, the Great Awakener, as Uranus is often called in the
Hmm.
zodiac, the rebel, the change maker, the lightning bolt, right? It's like Uranus is like the higher octave of Mercury. So Mercury's
Hmm.
like mundane day to day communication, but Uranus is like higher spirit
Yeah.
communication in a way. Uranus has been having a number of conjunctions to Algol, which is a fixed star in the Perseus constellation that represents Medusa's head. Okay. So if you know anything about the Medusa myth, now Medusa she was a priestess of Athena. She was a virgin priestess of Athena. Poseidon came along and assaulted her, and Athena got mad at, right? Medusa turned her into the snake-haired Medusa we all know. But even after her head was severed by Perseus, she still became like this powerful witch. So she's kind of like this dark feminine point in the sky. So her connecting in exact conjunctions over the last few months to Uranus, which is like, Uranus transits are almost unpredictable. It's kind of hard to predict them, but it's like intensity and fast, shocking upheaval, shocking change. Something that just kind of came out of left field. So that's all fun. And that's happening as well during America's Pluto return as we approach the election over here. So like, please come rescue us. Help. It's just like the world's worst reality TV show. The election. Just really, it's the worst reality TV show. I can't with it.
Yeah, I try and just stay out of all of that. But my dad, I've seen my dad in there like religiously watching it. I'm like, what bullshit is happening today in the world? Yeah, it's pretty intense. Well, as you were talking about Medusa and all that energy, like my whole back just felt activated. I felt like throwing up. I was like, this is some real like dark goddess, like propelling us forward energy, which makes sense. And I'm going to speak into, because I actually feel like I'm going to, usually I wait a few weeks before releasing these. I've been really slack with my podcast, but because this is so like current energies, I'm going to release it now. And I just want to say there's a message coming through. There's a lot of us who've been doing it really fucking tough for months of like ruthless initiations and like put to our knees, like what the hell. And I've seen it is like, it's like on the spiritual path, it's those who have been in this for a while. Like we've been doing this for a while. Those who've like really been on this journey for a while. The ones who are a bit newer on the journey, they're seeming to get like their rewards. Everything's coming in, all the manifestations, like they're having a good time. But the ones that are like really getting like, I'm gonna say fucked, but like they're getting under that pressure cooker are the ones who have kind of been doing this for a while. And I'm just wondering if we're being called to step up in preparation for something, to lead, or something's coming. And so we've really been like, that was the energy I was getting with Medusa and everything that you were saying that was coming through of like, oh yeah, talk about this energy. Because it's like every one of my sisters I've spoken to in the past couple months, it's like, I mean, my most of my sisters are really like far along this journey. They've been doing it for a while, full on priestesses. It's been the same. Like we've been like, whoa, what is this? What's going on? That you said that you're in a huge transformation now, so it's been like that for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And there are certain phases we go through in life that correspond to our astrology, like in our late 30s, you go through like Pluto square Pluto, transit Pluto is square, your natal Pluto. You go through the Neptune square, natal Neptune squaring transit Neptune, and then Uranus opposition. So in your early 40s. So there's a lot of like big activations that happen, and if we want to call it midlife ages, that can be really challenging. I think around 35 to 37, 38, you have a lunar node return as well. So like 35 to 41, it's not all peaches and cream. You're going through some difficult stuff, but if you're doing the work, the rewards will come. It's just, there's a lot of like, I think longer term, harder, more challenging energies to move through. And that's for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm glad you said that, because the next question I was going to ask, and probably our last question when we start to wrap it up, is, it's so easy to get like give our power away to. I'm seeing that. It's so funny. I've got these things saying eclipse mints right here. That's not a product plant. I was just thinking about the eclipse, and I'm like, oh, eclipse. It's so easy to give our power away because we've known these times to be particularly challenging, or they up or unearth a lot of stuff for us. I remember I did a podcast a while ago. I think it was the last eclipse season, talking about don't give your power away to the astrology, like use them to show you like, okay, this is maybe where we need to work, what the energy is supportive for. But what are some tips for people to like roll with it and utilize them as these powerful potentials for healing and transformation rather than be victimized by it?
The astrology is not out to get you. Okay. And we don't want to blame the astrology for things.
Yeah.
That is giving our power
It's
away.
fun to do that though. Fuck you, Pluto.
Be like,
Seriously,
damn,
Pluto,
Mercury
fuck you.
It's a dance between fate and free will. You still have free will. And it's really empowering information when you're like, oh, okay, that Pisces eclipse is going to activate my 7th house of relationships. There could be some big changes or insights that come. And remember, like eclipse season, eclipse something. They temporarily a shadow is cast over something in our lives. So symbolically, metaphorically, things are kind of like, what's going on here? I don't really know. And then after the eclipses are done, it's like, oh, I get why that happened. So it's about being patient through eclipse season. It's fated. It's a karmic destined time. You just kind of have to roll with it, stay grounded, enjoy it, and retain a sense of humor. Your sense of humor is going to get you through this wild realm that we're in.
Sorry, what are the dates again? It's
the
September 17th.
The 17th, and I want to say, let me pull it up here for the second one. I have a super awesome eclipse workbook I'll send you if you want.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so the first one is September 17th, conjunct the Pegasus. Mu Pegasus, if you want to know. Oh, and the sun in opposition to that partial lunar eclipse is conjunct asteroid Atlantis.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So there's some big Atlantis energy for that one on September 17th. And then the one for the new moon solar eclipse that happens 2 weeks later. Yes, that's October 2nd. Annular solar eclipse, new moon in Libra, conjunct Corvus, the crow. It's also conjunct Lilith, black moon Lilith, Mercury, Maki, which is one of the minor outer planets. And the south node is conjunct asteroid Sphinx. So big Egypt energy during that one.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, there you go. Let's see what happens, eh?
Yeah.
So any final messages you feel to share, anything coming through before we start to wrap it up?
I just want to thank you for having me on. This has been really lovely. And yeah, just to remind everyone, I think even though things are kind of wonky in this earth realm, in this timeline that we're in right now, you always have choices. You always have power to change your trajectory. And I think, yeah, again, just retaining our sense of humor. If we can't laugh at things, it's going to be a rough go. So
I agree with you there. Beautiful. Yeah. Heather, it's been amazing. If people want to find you and maybe get that workbook or download your book or whatever it is, how can they do that?
Yeah, actually, you can get my Eclipse workbook for free on my website. You can get the link. It's at the Starseed Sanctuary is my Instagram. You can get the link right there, download the free Eclipse workbook and see exactly where this eclipse is activated in your chart. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And your book, you put your book up again just so we can read the thing. If people want to find it on Amazon, it's The Healing Vortex Within, 44 Portals to Awaken Your Self-Healing Superpowers, Heather L. Hobson. And then there's a postdoctorate thing, but whatever the letters.
Those overpriced letters. I know.
The letters that I never know what they mean, but I'm like, you're important. Love it. Thank you, my love. It's been such an honor. I'm so glad I trusted my intuition, and we haven't seen the last of you. I think we're going to have you back on here for some more astrology stuff at some point.
Anytime. I'd be happy to come back.
Okay. To everyone listening, beautiful souls, I love you. And until next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Cracked Open. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend if this episode has served you in any way. For more information about the work that I do or to get in touch with me, read the show notes or head to beckmylonas.com. Until next time, beautiful soul.